Hey guys, and welcome to a battle between the mighty Lord Zeus in charge of the Tomb Kings up against Benento in charge of the much more regal High Elves, and we'll see how this battle gets cracking. Now, you guys may have noticed Lord Zeus popping up on the channel quite a lot recently, and that's because he's been playing it in a lot of tournaments, so you may recognise elements of this build already, but for those of you who are new to his kind of style of play, we'll break through the army. So, we do have some Skeleton Spearmen mixed in with some Skeleton Warriors in the front line. Looks like some chevrons on some of them, and some of them being the basic guys. Now, this is a fairly cheap and cheerful main line, and that's because they're not there to do the damage, they're to hold back the enemy, tar pit them as much as possible, while the other elements of his army really packs a punch and deals the damage. Now, as for the damage dealers, we have the two Screaming Skull catapults, also known as the meme catapults. Used to be considered quite poor, but they're not too bad, especially against tightly packed formations like the High Elves. They can really pack a punch and do some decent damage. We also have a Bone Giant here as well, with his gigantic bow there. Been doing some long-range fire damage. Not fire damage, but, long-range support. Also, fairly decent melee combatant considering as well. So, interesting to see how he performs here. Now, this is where all the money and the real kind of punch of the army comes from, and this is what Zeus has made very popular recently, bringing it in huge tournaments all across the Total War scene. So we have Settra the Imperishable on his chariot, bringing all his ridiculous buffs, including, though, the main one here, the Blessed Blade of Petra. Given that he imbues himself with fire damage, also lowers the stats of their enemies, and you combine that with the Necrotector, who has a really nasty ability called Vambraces of the Sun, increasing that debuff of 9 melee attack, but also giving them a plus 22% weakness to fire damage. You can see where I'm going here. That is going to pack a huge amount of damage. And then we also have a Tomb Princer who's brought Tomb Strike, the Curse as well to make everyone rampage, and another minus 24 to their melee attack, and Guardian to help protect this hero core here with that physical resistance. So a very deadly hero kind of doom stack here. And of course, these guys all have that massive armor-piercing anti-infantry, considering they are on chariots. Let's have a little look at the High Elf army. So up in the trees over here, we do have one unit of Illyrian Reavers looking to break into that back line. Over on the other flank, it looks like we have a little bit of a skirmish off here. So we do also have some Skeleton Horsemen here for Zeus's army. And the Heralds of the Wind, Regiment of Renowned Illyrian Reavers. I think the fastest cav unit in the game with a speed of 105. But often I find they can't actually pay for themselves just because they're relatively expensive for some missile cav, and they don't pack too much of a punch. But it'll be interesting. I could be proven wrong. I have many times before. Now, the High Elf build is gone very kind of secure here and tight. In the front line, we have two units of Spearmen to take some initial damage and charges. We then have a bit more punch in the two units of White Lines of the Chase, and a bit of a range core as well. Lothran Seaguard mixed in with Archers. Lothran Seaguard just protecting the flanks a little bit. Quite like that as a formation there with those range troops. We also have the Keepers of the Flame, Regiment of Renowned Phoenix Guard, incredibly expensive but incredibly powerful armor-piercing anti-large unit. Phoenix Guard in general I find are very, very good against Tomb Kings, mainly because they're just such a sticky unit to deal with unless you take them out with magic or that long-range support. In the background, we do have an Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower who's been protected by those loyal Phoenix Guard. Decent at taking out your Shop Tea and whatnot, so not a bad pick at all. Now, for his leadership, we do have a Mage of Shadows, another pick I quite like here. Definitely going for the Mind Razor tactic here on top of that dragon in the distance, and enfeebling foe as well to try and nuke the enemy's stats. And up in the sky, we do have a Prince. So this is quite popular at the moment. I'm not sure if Darv Plays was the man who made this popular. He did a video about Mind Razor, or if he was just testing out, this new phenomenon, which can seem to kind of sweep across multiplayer. But either way, it's definitely made it more popular. So what you do is you take a Prince like this, you bring the Blade of Bel Cordis to give him that plus melee attack and armor pierce, and you drop Mind Razor on him, and all of a sudden he's an absolute monster of a combatant with crazy armor piercing stats. However, I do find it a little bit random as he doesn't have the best melee attack. I mean, 64 is, no joke, but it's not crazy high. So I think, it's a bit of give and take. I don't know if it's how impressive it is. Everyone seems really obsessed with it at the moment. I think it's very good, but we'll see how it works out here. So, the Screaming Meme catapults are flinging some shots in and doing some really decent damage, as you can see, to these White Lines of Chase, even pulling off a couple of archers there as well. Now, do we have a skirmish battle on this left-hand flank? We do. We have the Skeleton Horsemen just chasing away the Heralds of the Wind. They stand zero chance of catching them, but at least they're stopping damage coming onto any serious targets. We have some more Illyrian Reavers trying to sneak in the back here, but nice play by Zeus, keeping these Skeleton Spearmen nearby and waiting for his chariot support. In the front, you can see White Lines Chase down to about half health now. Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower is firing in. I'm not sure what it's trying to target. It doesn't look like it's hit too much. And we see the stack of chariots coming out here to meet these Illyrian Reavers, and those guys would definitely best flee for their lives. Over in the distance, it looks like the Heralds of the Wind actually slaughtered those Nekakar horsemen in combat, so turned around and fought them to the death. So nice play there by the High Elves. And we do a big breath attack as well, coming in nice angle here on the Skeleton Spearmen, doing some decent damage. But again, you know, they're Skeleton Spearmen, they're kind of there to die, that is their job. And the Skull Catapults now aiming for the Keepers of the Flame, doing some really decent damage so far on those guys. We have, let's have a little look, 45 kills on one and 25 on the other. So the dragon is going to be coming in, trying to snipe out of this Bone Giant, which is also what the Eagle Bolt Thrower is doing. And that dragon is going to have Orcham's Mind Razor popped. And if we quickly slow this down right here, you can see his weapon strength is over 1,000 now. 1,015. So if he hits, he does insane amounts of damage with that weapon strength. But melee attack still 64. So this is my one problem with this build, is that there's still a bit of randomness if you're going to make those hits or not. So where is this Chariot Doom squad? It looks like it cleaned up some Illyrian Reavers in the back, and now it's going to be cycling over towards this dragon. And we'll see if he manages to win here. Star Dragon, incredibly powerful foe, especially with all his buffs. He's screaming and flinging Skeleton Spearmen left and right, trying to deal desperately with that Bone Giant. But in come the Chariots now, and this Prince wants none of that. He immediately starts fighting, and look how hard his health tanked there, all the way down to 3,400. And these guys are going to continue to chase, but it looks like he is just going to get up in the air and quickly make a very solid escape. So he only took one attack there and still took an absolute pounding. Bone Giant trying to fling some shots in there to try and do that extra damage and help finish him off. In the background, Heralds of the Wind struggling to find a home, getting forced out wide by Skeleton Spearmen and just pushed away from the main engagement. Looks like one Skull Catapult is starting to wave, and the Bone Giant does go down from that continued pressure from the Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower. The Catapults, on the other hand, have done a huge amount of damage so far, and the front line is starting to struggle a little bit for the Tomb Kings, but nothing too crazy. And the Chariots just start roaming in the back now, running over some Lothran Seaguard. Keepers of Flame, a good counter if they can manage to get in. But these Chariots, fairly nifty and fast themselves, are going to flee just quickly. But as soon as the dragon pops in, they're going to turn and fight this. They don't care that the Keepers of Flames are here. They're going to be popping all their buffs. Or looks like the Prince is popping all his buffs, sorry. But it's not going to help him too much. You'll see his health just absolutely tanks against his armor-piercing core. You can see he's popped all his buffs as well, Settra, and the Prince just starts to go down so quickly. It's such a scary leadership core here, and the dragon, completely surrounded by chariots here, is down to 375 health, and he's going to be running for the hills as fast as possible. I don't think he's going to be able to get out there, and down he goes. That took just a matter of seconds. Even with the Keep of the Flames here, look how untouched this core is in comparison to that poor dragon. So if the leadership gone, the Hives are going to start to struggle, but they have managed to push through the front line for the most part fairly well, and we do have the Heralds of the Wind have popped in the back here on top of the Screaming Catapult. Being very fast, they managed to juke these Skeleton Spearmen and get into the back line. So nice real pick here. He needs to bounce onto this one, Screaming Catapult, and then onto the next one to try and finish them off, because those catapults are doing such huge damage to these Keepers of the Flame units, which are going to be really important to try and drag himself back into this. Settra pretty beaten up now, but he's getting into the Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower. Going to be dismantling that very quickly. This range core is trying to react as fast as possible, but basic archers aren't going to do too much damage to those Settra the Imperishable and those chariots. Heralds of the Wind doing a really nice play here, popping onto this next Screaming Catapult, but a Ushopti Summon has come down in response, and they're going to easily carve up the Heralds of the Wind if they don't flee and get out of there. As for the front line, Spearmen are done pretty good. They managed to break through the Skeleton Spearmen and the White Lions, who did take an early beating, still up to 61 kills and getting some really nice value here. But those chariots are going to be a huge problem now. The High Elves don't really have anything of any mass left now that that dragon, mighty dragon, has fallen. They don't have any mass to pin them in, so they're going to be able to cycle charge quite comfortably. We do have some Skeleton Warriors charging headlong in towards some Spearmen in the ultimate damp lettuce contest here. But, you know, overall, Spearmen shouldn't do too bad. They are above their half health, so they still have their martial prowess active. You can see down here it gives them some really nice stats. Plus 12 melee defense, plus 2 melee attack. But they will slowly get dragged down probably by the more infantry-focused Skeleton Warriors here. Chariots are going for a charge into the Keeper of the Flames and this General Blob. And even with their anti-large, the Keeper of the Flames just don't stand too much chance against such, you know, AP anti-infantry. We are going to see a little bombardment go down there as well. Keeper of the Flames do have Mind Razor popped on them, but the Chariots are simply going to fall back now as the High Elves desperately try and grapple with them, and they're going to swoop back around, constantly stay moving, constantly staying as a really hard-hitting pain in the arse, basically, and it's doing fantastic work. They've managed to pop onto the Major Shadows and find him now, and we saw how quickly that dragon's going to die. This hero instantly breaks pretty much, and that is going to be a Pyrrhic victory for the Tomb Kings. So let's go to the end stats there. So, super fun battle, very well played to both opponents. Really quite nice play in the end with the Heralds of the Wind, managing to shut down both the catapults in the end, but unfortunately by that time they'd already done some really decent damage of 77 and 68 kills respectively, and most of those were on, you know, Keepers of the Flame, White Lions, and the like, so they did pay for themselves very well. Now, the risk of Lord Zeus's army here is that infantry is incredibly terrible, and it's simply there just to hold the line. You'll see the Bone Giant also kind of paid the troll toll, unfortunately, getting shot down by the Equal Bolt Thrower, but it did entice in that Prince, which allowed the main point of this Tomb King's army to get in there, get a couple of early hits, and really start nuking that guy's health down for that final engagement against him. So there is a little bit of risk to this army. If the chariots can be countered, then it's a big problem. But they're so tough, and we tested out so many different ways of using this army, and those guys can literally beat multiple groups of Dragon Princes with Tyrion quite comfortably. Fireborn, of course, they struggle with because Fireborn have that fire resistance and fire damage themselves, and are pretty damn tough. But they can beat down Cold One Knights comfortably, multiple units. I think we did 4 units of Cold One Knights up against these guys who are designed to kill large. You know, they have that bonus versus large, and they just got absolutely destroyed. So very powerful core. Expect to see this kind of Tomb King meta forming on quick battles and in tournaments in the near future. It is just so goddamn powerful. So massive thank you to Lord Zeus for sending this replay in. Hope you guys did enjoy. If so, please do give a big old thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't, and you'll get to see more awesome content. So until next time, guys, peace, and stay awesome.